Do different amp sims even matter?
Well, of course they do. That was just a clickbait title. But different amp simulators might not matter quite as much as you think they do. In this video, we're going to take a look at different amp sims, impulse responses, and overdrive effects to see how they all interact and what is most important for your guitar tone so you can make better decisions about how you spend your money on audio software. I'm Eric Peabody, and this is Viking Guitar Productions. Hold on, before we get started, one thing. This video is not about how to create a certain guitar tone or make a perfect tone or anything like that. This video is about looking at the software components involved and seeing how changes we make to those change the resultant tone. The guitar sounds in this video are only here for comparison, to see which change, which stay the same, which sound similar and which sound different, that sort of thing. If after watching this video, all you can do is leave a comment that says, "That tone sucks," or something like that, maybe you should spend some more time off the internet. Now let's say that you, like many guitarists, are unhappy with your guitar tone. Maybe you used to be happy with it, you used to like it, but not anymore. Now you wake up one morning to find an intriguing email in your inbox. This email is from and they have just released their brand spankin' new amp simulator. So you get all spicy and fired up, and you head over to the webpage and you listen to the sound samples, and you watch a playthrough video, and maybe you even read a good endorsement from one of your favorite guitarists. That's when you realize this is the answer. As soon as you buy this plugin, all of your tone problems will be over. Forever. But stop right there, my friend. Haven't you been down this road before? What happened to that last amp sim you bought that was going to solve all of your tone problems and give you perfect godlike tone forever? What happened to all of the other plugins over the years that you've endlessly purchased, chasing tone? Have you ever had a dark thought in the deepest part of the night that maybe, just maybe, all of these amp sims really sound the same? Let's jump on over to the DAW and take a closer look at what really goes into your guitar tone. Now before we start, make sure you're listening on good headphones or on studio monitors, and make sure the video is playing back at full resolution because we're going to be paying attention to details here.
Here, we have a session in Reaper with a whole bucket load of tracks. Now before you freak out, don't worry, there's really not too much going on here. All it really comes down to are two guitar recordings, one left, one right, both playing the same thing. We've run those two guitar tracks through a whole bunch of different amp sims, impulse responses, and overdrive VSTs, so you can hear how each component is actually sculpting the tone. Now I want to make mention here that all of these tracks are pre-rendered because running all of these with real-time processing while screen capturing would kill my computer. Also, there are timestamps in the video description for every sound sample in this video, so if you want to jump around for a direct comparison, go for it. To start, we're going to compare some overdrives. This isn't the most important part of your tone, but it'll be the easiest to clear up first. All of these examples are going to be using the Neural DSP Fortin Cali amp with a built-in impulse response loader. The only thing that changes are the overdrives. We're going to be looking at the Cali internal Hexdrive, the 999, the TSE 808, Plugin Alliance's BX Green Scream, Mercurial Audio's TSC, Mercurial Audio's Greed Smasher, Audiority's Dr. Drive, Plugin Alliance's BX Black Dist, and Audiority's Big Goat. A lot of these VSTs are replicating different real-life overdrive pedals such as the Ibanez Tube Screamer, the Mesa Boogie Grid Slammer, and Horizon Devices Precision Drive. Let's listen to this inspired and brilliant guitar riff about 100 times while we compare these overdrive settings. Now, while there is some slight variation among all of these, most of them sound extremely similar. In fact, I'd say that in a mix, you'd be hard-pressed to find the difference here. The only real in-your-face difference comes when we get to the BX Black Dist and the Audiority Big Goat, which are both simulating far different pedals than the others here. Let's take a quicker listen to everything. So the takeaway here is not that different overdrive VSTs don't matter, or that they don't make a difference. The point is that if you're looking to drastically change your tone, you probably don't want to get a new version of an overdrive VST that you already have, like another replication of the Tube Screamer. Getting a different type of overdrive VST, like something simulating a Boss DS1 or a Rat, will change some of the reactive character of your guitar sound, but the overall tone, the EQ response, and most noticeable character of your guitar sound will stay the same. Moving forward, we're going to be using the Mercurial Audio Greed Smasher for the rest of this video. So what really does have the biggest impact on your tone? You might think it's the amp sim, but it's actually the impulse response.
But Eric, you say, indignant and mostly incorrect, I have tons of different amp sims, and they all sound very different. Well, yes, I reply. But have you considered the fact that they're all using different built-in impulse responses? Now, most of the big amp sims these days, from Neural DSP, Mercurial Audio, Positive Grid, they all have their own proprietary internal impulse response loaders with their own impulse responses. Now, what that means is that it's great because you've got everything in one nice little package, but it makes it difficult to compare different amp sims without doing an apples to oranges thing because everyone is using a different impulse response. So what we're going to do now is take our Fortin Cali amp that we've been listening to, we're going to turn off the internal impulse response loader, and we're going to listen to that amp with the same settings through a bunch of different external impulse responses just to see what impact that has. We're going to start with the built-in IR loader in Fortin Cali, what we've been listening to. Then we're going to go to a blended IR that I created based on the 2015 Anthrax album, great record. Then we're going to go through a Redwirez Mesa impulse, and lastly, the classic and free spreshigh impulse from Catharsis. Now keep in mind, I've done my best to even out the volume of all these so they all come through at about the same level. The last thing I want is you hearing one louder than the other and just thinking, oh, that's the better one. So let's jump in. After hearing that, I probably don't have to tell you that changing impulse responses makes a massively huge difference to your overall guitar tone, much more so than changing the overdrive pedal. IRs are powerful things. They can make your tone sound so bad that it's unworkable, you can't use it, or so godly perfect that you kind of have to just cross your legs and hope no one's looking at you. But the question remains, what exactly is the amp doing to the sound? To answer that question, we're going to look at 3 different amps by 3 different companies at 3 different price points. First, the Neural DSP Fortin Cali that we've been listening to retails for about $120 US. Second, we're going to listen to Plug-in Alliance's BX VH4 by Brainworks that retails for about $150 US. And lastly, the NaLex Ninja, which is cheap as free. Now, I want to note that the Fortin Cali and the BX VH4 both have internal impulse response loaders that I am disabling for this test here. Everything is run through external impulses, the same 3 impulses we just listened to. Let's see what happens. As you can probably hear, changing the amp does impact the sound, but not a whole lot, not nearly as much as swapping the impulse response. Different amps have more to do with how the amp responds to your playing, more about the dynamics and less about the actual EQ profile that results. The impulse response is more for that. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Eric, with all this distortion, how can we even tell what's happening? So let's listen to some clean examples. We're going to start with Mercurial Spark, then we're going to go to good old Line 6 Pod Farm, and then, lastly, back to the Fortin Cali. Clean channel this time. We're going to be listening to all 3 amps through 2 different impulse responses. The first is a Redwirez 1960 V30 impulse, and the second one is from the Tone Vampire set. Let's give it a listen. So once again, you can hear a slight difference between the different amps and a much more pronounced difference when you swap the impulse responses. So what's the takeaway here? Am I saying that you should never go out and buy another amp sim? No, of course I'm not saying that. Amp sims are a lot more than what we've shown here today. Some have beautiful built-in effects. Others have really great IR loaders and wonderful IRs just natively to the plugin. Others have whole collections of amps, and some are just really easy to dial in. Some also have standalone versions that are great for just casual practice or performance. Outside of all that, there's questions like, how is the CPU load? How does it work with your operating system? How's the customer support for the company if you need to reach out to them? Most importantly of all, though, is how versatile is the amp. Amps have different ranges of characteristics, and all we've done here today is show how you can use the same impulse response and get a similar tone through a bunch of different amp sims. That doesn't mean that these amplifiers aren't capable of going beyond that. For example, some of the tones here today, on the amp, I had the bass knob turned all the way off. For that same sound, same impulse on some of the other amps, I had it much more maxed out. That means that different amps can go louder, brighter, heavier, all of that. That being said, if you find yourself wanting to buy a new amp sim, take a moment, stop, hold on to your hard-earned cash and ask yourself, why do I want this? If it's because you're prone to gear acquisition syndrome, or maybe because everyone online is talking about the awesome new amp plugin, or maybe even some guitar player you respect has come out and talked about it, maybe hold off. At the very least, go to the website, get the demo, see how you like it, how you like working with it. You can listen to the sound samples on the website, but I would take those with a grain of salt. It's not that they're lying to you, but you don't know how much additional processing has gone into those final results, and having a demo is a great way to see how you actually work with it. Now, if the answer to your question of why you want a new amp sim is, I'm not happy with how my guitar sounds, then break that question down a little further. Are you not happy with the tone, or not happy with how the amp is responding to your playing? If it's the tone you're not happy with, before you go buy a new amp sim and spend 20 or 50 or 150 or 300 bucks, go find some new impulse responses. Load those up, see if that gets you closer to where you want to be. There are a lot of good free ones out there. Now, if it's the response to your playing that you're not so happy with, it might be time to get a new amp sim, or at the very least, go pick up a new OVERDRIVE VST, something that's replicating a different pedal than what you already have. And outside of all of this, there is something to be said for getting a new piece of software that sounds different and inspires you creatively. You can't really put a price on that, but sometimes that's a fleeting thing. It's a slippery slope to be chasing that, and you can end up spending a lot of money on audio gear that inspires you for a short amount of time, and then you're just right back to where you were. So let's say you're at the end of your rope. You've tried 1,000 different amp simulators, 1,000,000 different impulse responses, and every overdrive VST under the sun, and you just cannot get your guitar tone how you want it. You might need to learn more about how to dial this stuff in. There's a course called Guitar Tone Mastery by Scott Elliott of Chernobyl Studios. It's offered at Pro Mix Academy. This is not a paid endorsement. They haven't given me anything. This is just a course I took that I found very beneficial and might help you. There's a link in the description. Now, let's say your problems go beyond just guitars. Let's say you also have bass to work with, vocals, synthesizers, drums, maybe even a full orchestra. Maybe you don't even care about metal guitar tone and you have a jazz quartet, and you're recording an album, no matter what the genre is, and you want to make sure it sounds good when you release it. Well, it just so happens that I am a freelance mixing and mastering engineer. I've been doing it for over 10 years. People seem to like the work I do. If you want to hear sound examples and read client testimonials, you can go to www.vikingguitar.com. You can email me at viking.guitar.productions@gmail.com, and I'd love to talk to you about what your project is and how we can get it sounding as good as possible. Also, leave a comment below here. Let me know what your favorite amp simulator impulse response combo is, things that surprised you, things that really did pay off, and maybe some things that you purchased that you wish you hadn't. Thanks again for watching. I'm Eric Peabody with Viking Guitar Productions, and until next time, keep the world metal.